All right, guys. Hello and welcome back. This is round two of my collective performance for BrigadeCon. I was lucky enough to get a hold of Rob, and we can actually go ahead and do this thing. Rob from Performance Check is here with me. And we're about to delve into NPCs and characters and do all this over again. I feel like I'm doing a flashback. It's like I'm Marty McFly and I'm doing Back to the Future right now. I just need my DeLorean.
You do, man. The flux capacitor is the only way to get me onto your stream in time. I would like to apologize to those watching who were expecting me on the first stream. The problem is I just don't like Michael Lashambe, so I just couldn't be present on the same hangout as him. We have many disagreements, and I know he wants me dead, so that's great. I'm just kidding. No, my sleeping pattern is all over the shop thanks to BrigadeCon, but hopefully I'll try and make up for it in this stream. And thanks for having me, Chad. It's a real pleasure.
Yeah, man, absolutely. So here's what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of go down the same listing that I went through with Mike earlier this morning. And I'll just go ahead and post these in our chat so you have them on the side so we don't have to keep going back and forth. But here...
That's wicked.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and I'll start by asking you. Obviously, you are a professional actor. Which is something special, I think, because I kind of come from that same background. I used to do theater acting and all that stuff early on when I was like in teen years and stuff. But how do you, or when was the first time you ever tried voices at a tabletop game? So because I guess it's different when you're doing theater performances and you have to portray a character. But when was the first time you ever played in a tabletop game with fellow friends and were like, I'm going to throw a voice that's not my own?
Yeah, that's a really good question. That takes me back some way. I mean, I started playing role-playing games when I was 13, 14 years old, maybe. And the first game I ran, I mean, when I played the games, usually I don't think I did a voice to start off with, but the first game I ever ran was actually the D20 version of Star Wars, and that isn't the Saga edition. That was the one before it, which was the same as 3.5. Well, essentially, it was the 3.5 conversion. And the thing is about Star Wars is there's so many races in Star Wars. I mean, if you think there's a lot of races in D&D, there's twice that in Star Wars. It's ridiculous. And I found that when I was trying to present these characters in that galaxy far, far away, I had to do alien voices. Now, it didn't mean that I was speaking. I did this interesting thing. In Star Wars, a lot of the time there are alien voices that you just don't understand, and then there are subtitles at the bottom of the screen in the films, like with Jabba the Hutt. So I would find myself pretending to be a Hutt, going "Ooh-da, woo-doo, Jedi mind trick." I love that the Hutts don't have a Hutt word for Jedi mind trick, so they go Jedi mind trick. But that's essentially the first time I was doing it. Like I was being a Hutt, I was being Rhodians, Duros, that sort of thing. And then that was the first time, definitely. And it was good fun, being a huge fan of the films as well. So yeah, man, that was it.
Yeah, that's awesome. I remember one thing that I love about you, man, is it just seems like every time you step up for a character, whether it be in a game that's played or whether you're DMing something, you can use your own voice, and you are really methodical about making sure that what is being displayed, like imagery, is really big. And I can immediately see every character you portray, even if you're not playing it as a voice. So I guess my next question to you then would be, what has been your favorite character voice you've tried so far, and why?
Yeah, it's tricky. I mean, I kind of consider doing voices as what a tool in a toolbox. I like to, use all aspects of I guess I hesitate to call it performance in D&D, despite the
Yeah.
fact that my channel is called Performance Check, because you don't need to be performing, you don't need to be an actor, you don't need to be putting on a show when you're running or playing in a game. But expression and mood and tone are just a few things that are crucial if you want to give a wide spectrum of characters. My favorite voice, that's really difficult. Um, that is really tricky. Do you mean of a particular of a character, or one that I would use a lot?
Well,
Or
like, I guess how I would portray that is there's obviously been like PCs or NPCs that you have played before and portrayed before. Has there ever been one that really like stuck out in your mind as like this is the guy, this is the one that like will stay with me because that was the first real big experience for me, that
yeah.
that's my memorable character?
Okay, yeah. There was and this is way before I started playing games online. I was running a D&D game for my friends back when I was studying. Um and we've been playing for some time, and this was a campaign that was about the great game that dragons essentially, to cut a long story short, it's a vast game of chess that dragons play with civilization essentially, and lesser races are their pawns to use essentially, and that's how the dragons fight each other, with their collective wealth and their collective control. And I had this character who was an upstart dragonkin. And in 3.5, dragonkin were essentially a larger version than the dragonborn in 5th edition. And the dragonkin were sort of large creatures, probably about the height of a troll, but they looked like dragonborns, and they had big wings on their back. Very, very formidable, powerful characters. And this was one of my main villains, and he was called Red Mirror. And I liked him because I could use my essentially my go-to sort of low evil voice, and it's right at the back of the throat. And the thing is, I can't do it for super long, because I could, but it just starts hurting after a while. But I'll see if I can do it. It's you think you have power here, you have no hope. Like, it's right in the back. It's
like that's freaky good in how dark and how deep you can get, because I've tried that, and unfortunately my octave range, like I can't, I haven't found that really like deep resonance to that. I don't know how you do it. I don't know how you do it.
Well, I tell you what, like, I've been doing that voice since I was a kid, like long before I
Right.
was doing D&D. Like, it probably wasn't as good because I was obviously a kid and
Mm-hmm.
puberty hadn't happened, maybe.
Puberty had to
But
happen to get those extra.
but the it's still something that I enjoy doing, and it's really about just allowing all of the sound and all of the modulation that you're using when doing different voices to occur right at the back of the throat. Um,
Okay.
it can be picked up if you just practice, and I think that's the thing. I mean, I always practice, like, whether it be in my professional career, or if it's a particular voice that I want to nail in running D&D, or playing in D&D.
Mm.
um, I just look in the mirror, and I talk, and I get influences from different characters that I see on TV or in film and stuff. So and from there, you can just you can nuance it, and then you can make it your own. You don't have to copy it exactly, but as long as you're getting inspiration um, from somewhere like that, then I think you can't really lose.
Uh, yeah, I love that, man. Actually, we talked about that earlier in the other stream. There was a moment where Mike and I were talking about mirror monologues, Like I
Yeah,
mentioned
sure.
mirror monologues where you just go into go into your bathroom, go into like a full standing mirror, and you just do a monologue as the character for yourself. For taxes, for instance, right? When we go do Lore Keepers games
Yeah.
for taxes,
Yeah.
I'll sit in my bathroom in front of the mirror, and I just run through scenarios that you very well may throw at us in the next session or so, and to
Sure.
practice and to get things going, I just sort of throw those things out the window. There was, and I'll go ahead and I don't know if I should, because you're my DM and you're running these things, but there was one monologue that there was one monologue I did the other day where I basically had taxes strap a bear trap to a rope and use it almost scorpion like to drag an enemy back towards him.
Really cool.
And that was really cool. So at some point, I think I'm going to try to use that in the game.
Okay.
But we'll go down to the next question too.
Well, I mean, let me just say, whilst taxes is in the topic of conversation, I mean, I think taxes is a prime example. I mean, like, I know you ran a few influences by me as to where taxes' voice came from.
Yeah.
And I think taxes to me isn't just a voice. Like when you play taxes, like if you go back and you watch Lore Keepers, you know, you grin, like, and you show your teeth quite a lot.
Yeah.
And I think it's elements like that. And I mean, I don't want to go into too much about getting into the role, like method acting, but if you are going to play a dragon, or if you were a dragon, you would be flashing your teeth, you would be snarling, you would be hunching over. So I think physically manifesting a character on your face and through your body language is just a really easy way of accessing a voice, because you are allowing yourself to get into that flow, that rhythm of that character. And then by doing so, it just becomes all the more easier. And I think you do that really well with taxes. Like I've said to you before, like, never been such a huge fan of player characters being Dragonborn, because originally I thought, oh, they want to be like dragons, you know, but you have made the quintessential Dragonborn, in my opinion. Like, there's none better.
Well, thank you very much.
No, it's true, man. And it's because of that manifestation of that, of those animalistic kind of tendencies that he has. But anyway, sorry, I interrupted you.
No, you're fine. I think that I agree with you. We were talking earlier, Mike and I were talking about mannerisms and about quirks and like facial expressions, and how do you do, or what do you do there if you're gonna, if you're not gonna really hone in on a specific voice, how do you separate yourself? Like if everybody at the table is going to use a British voice, how do you differentiate yourself from one to the other? And a lot of that comes from facial expressions and tones that you throw out there. So I completely agree with you on that, where it's like, if you know what your character is going to be, if you have an idea of what it's going to be, and you hone in on that like immediately. Like for me, I didn't know what taxes was going to be in the Lore Keepers, but within the last 2 episodes that we've done, I kind of know what I personally want to see out of him. So there are certain things that I'm going to do in future episodes that, like, ooh, this would be a cool step for him to take, or this would be the next cool thing for me to try to get him to do, so that my character develops over time. And so that's one thing I can say to voices in general. Your voice will develop over time. So if you come to the first session, I think, I think sometimes players get locked up in sessions, right? Like especially that first session, because that first session's nerve-wracking. That first session's the one you've been like hounding yourself over for the last week, preparing a voice for, and you're like, all right, I got nothing, and I'm not ready. but over time that voice will develop.
Definitely. And I think going back to what you said about multiple people at the table using the same accent, I mean, at the end of the day, all of our voices are different. No one fully sounds the same. So I think you just rely on the fact that you will generally sound different to most anyway. And yeah, you can't go wrong. But absolutely, I completely agree.
All right. And so on that note, though, of like people kind of having that tendency against voices when it comes to the table, what advice would you give to nervous players who've never attempted character vocals before?
Well, I mean, I think it's first of all, I think it's important to say that, I mean, voices, I mean, I wouldn't say that they're for every game they're 100% like crucial. I think if you're going to be so nervous about pulling off a particular voice to the point that it's going to throw you off running the game or playing in the game or enjoying the game, I would say don't worry about it. It's I mean, as long as you're in an environment where you're comfortable, I think that's important. Then that's the first step. I think make sure that you're in a place where, if you are a nervous person, you are worried about putting a voice out there, to make sure that you have you're in an environment with people that you care about or that like you. I suppose helps. I mean, I think that the tricky thing is that because I mean, this new culture of us gaming online, and those games are then recorded to YouTube and then are watched by hundreds of people. I mean, that I suppose adds a new layer to it, because then it is recorded and it's there, and you're actually, you're gaming for an audience in a sense, and I think that can be another factor in making people nervous. I mean, I would say if you're nervous but you want to give voices a go, however, just start simple. I mean, it's not entirely about accents. Are you good, Chad? You okay, Chad? Okay, Chad's having to go, so I'm going to fill time. I'm going to fill time and look into the chat. There we go. Hey, man.
We are good. We are good.
That's cool,
yes.
then.
Yeah, we are good.
Fill time.
No, we are good, man. That was just letting me know he was getting ready to leave. So.
Oh, sure, no problem. But yeah, as I was saying, I mean, if you are nervous about doing a voice, but you want to give it a go, despite the fact, I'd recommend you don't. It doesn't always have to be an accent. I think accents are specific to obviously a specific place, and you can for a lot of the characters that I use when I game, I don't always put on an accent. Like it can just be to the point where you're changing the tone or the pitch of your voice. If you're playing an old man, for instance, then you make your voice a little higher and you make it a bit more strained. Instantly, you're playing a different character with a different voice, and you don't really have to do an awful lot. It's just changing the method of how you would speak normally. And from there, you can develop a rich resume of just different characters simply from tweaking your own voice just slightly. So that's what I would recommend first of all, and then go from there. And also just watch actors that you like, watch performers that you enjoy, and see how they do it. Watch and listen very carefully to how they enunciate words, and I think you can't go wrong.
Yeah, definitely, man. I'm definitely going to agree with you. We got a question from Harry that I'll cover a little bit later. The one question I want to ask you though is something that I've seen brought up and I've dealt with before in other games. How do you maintain consistency, especially when other players are using different accents? So we talked about this morning, but I want to know what your technique and your take is on it, because especially from you, I feel like you have a lot of experience dealing with stuff like that. And I want to know what you would recommend to people.
Sorry, could you just run the question by me again, please?
Yeah.
So it was.
No, you're good. So how do you maintain consistency of a character voice, especially among other players who are using different accents?
Sure. So, I mean, it's something that I like to call a trigger, and triggers work specifically for accents, I guess, better than if it was just a made-up voice that you've made up. But if you've got an accent, there you will find that there are different ways that different people say different words. I'll give you an example. Like my trigger for Scottish, I won't do the full thing because it involves a swear word, but it is, I'll smash your head in with a rock. A rock. You say rock, and then you're Scottish. You're talking like that, laddie, and you got it. And that's how I do it. Like, and no word of lie. Like, I have to do that. I have to think in my mind, rock, and then I've got it. If I want a Welsh accent, oddly enough, my trigger for the Welsh accent is aliens. If I say aliens, and I'm talking with a Welsh accent, you know, it's just being confident with saying one word in an accent, and then going and then trying to just shape the rest of the words after that one template. And it's, I mean, I know it's tricky. The hardest thing with accents and voices, I think, is improvising. If you have a script, if you know what you're going to say, then you can work out every single inclination of those words to then speak in that accent. It's how a lot of actors do it. It's how I do it. It's you learn how you say every single word of that script, for example, and you just piece it all together, and then you're then speaking that accent. Improvising is different because you're having to sort of think about it as you go through. But in terms of consistency, I would say if you have a trigger word, I would say remember it, write it down in your DM notes if you need to, or on your character sheet. Like if you wanted to play a Scottish dwarf, then just write rock on the top.
We've got
roll
like
your R.
Yep, you've got a lot of like safety words. The safe word is
safety word, man. Yeah.
No, but like I totally agree with you on that one. Because for me, almost every character I have has one of those trigger words. I didn't think about it. I didn't even realize I was doing it. But now that you mention it, going back and seeing how I've done certain characters in the past, there are always those trigger words, or there's always that first starting point of a character before you go, hey, so now I'm actually doing that voice. All right, I'm here. Now stay here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's difficult, but I definitely agree with you that it's something that you have to learn, but always have it in your view, in your peripheral. For me, like, I don't want to do Scottish much, but if I do, it's you know, it sort of flows off the end of the tongue. Because
that was really good, man.
Once you started rolling with it, it makes it better.
Well, there you go, rolling. It's rolling the R.
Rolling, because once you understand the roll of the R, it makes it easier for the rest of the day. So for me, I kind of want to get your perspective on a couple of things. The big thing that I had was Jeremy Lilly wrote me a question about chickening out. Like when you get to the table, just freezing up and locking out and saying, look, I had a voice, it was there, and then nothing. Right? So what do you think? How do you have any advice on how to bridge that gap, like that nervous stage energy, and then getting right over it into the actual gameplay?
Yeah, it's tricky. I mean, if it makes you nervous to the point that it's gonna mean that you're not gonna have fun. I mean, number one rule of role-playing games is that you're there to have fun. If you're going to worry about doing this voice and it means that you're not going to have fun, don't worry about it. End of the day, if you're not doing accents or voices at the table, people aren't gonna, gamers aren't really gonna mind, because they're all in the same situation as you. They're all presenting characters. It's yeah, and if you do mess up, then it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at all. In terms of having a backup, I mean, it's tricky. Like, I suppose what I would do if I wanted to avoid doing a specific accent for a character, because I think accents are trickier than voices, because you are beholden to a culture that isn't exactly present in the game. I mean, unless you are playing in the Highlands of Scotland, then like,
Yeah, exactly.
you're not necessarily, you know what I mean? Yeah, exactly. So it's so I would just think about the character. Just think about if you need a backup for this character. Okay, so I'll take that character Red Mirror that I was talking about before, the Dragon Kin, and say for one reason or other I didn't want to do the really low voice. Well, I think to myself, well, what is this guy like? Well, he is high status, and if he's high status, that means he is going to be commanding. So then, if I don't want to do any voice whatsoever, but still present that character, then with my body language, with the way that I'm speaking, I am very direct. You will follow my orders to the best of your ability. Like, I'm no longer doing that voice, but it's still something. It's still something to differentiate between you talking as a character and speaking as the DM or GM.
Right, showing that character, even if you can't vocalize that character, is
well, absolutely. I mean, 70% of how we communicate is body language, not the voice. Like, you can tell much more from someone if you watch a TV show, from the look in someone's eyes or the way that they're standing. I mean, that's why you can watch. I could watch a Japanese film, and I could have a rough idea of what's going on, despite the fact that I don't speak or understand Japanese. Like, there's something that transcends that. So I'd say rely on body language, rely on just thinking about what that character is like, and I don't think you can go too wrong. So yeah.
Very cool, man. Very cool. No, sorry, I got another question in there.
No, so, I know you're going back and forth.
No, I'm going back and forth, so that's fine.
Yeah, no, it's all good, man. It's all good.
So Harry had this cool one, and I haven't had an opportunity to do it. Harry from Two Guys, T and D&D.
Yeah, man.
Our good friend, he says, I've always wanted to try to imitate Christopher Lee's voice. How would you guys go about learning how to do that voice and the way that he expresses himself? I'm sure you guys have a system.
Well, you know what? I think it's a tricky one. Impressions are significantly different if you're just doing an accent or a voice, because we go back to that individuality. We go back to the fact that nobody sounds the same. And Christopher Lee, I mean, that guy was an absolute legend. I still love Christopher Lee, obviously. And an iconic voice. I mean, you couldn't have picked one more difficult, like, because if you heard Christopher, if you and I were just listening to something and then we heard Christopher Lee, we would know it was Christopher Lee. And if we heard someone trying to be Christopher Lee, I can absolutely guarantee you would know that isn't Christopher Lee, because his voice is just so sonorous and expressive and powerful. And so it's tricky. Impressions are really difficult. I mean, the only thing that I can say is just go back and watch him lots and lots and lots. I've recently been watching Star Trek: The Next Generation. I have always enjoyed the TV show, but I've never watched it from beginning to end, and it's all on Netflix. So I'm like, every time I get an hour or so, I can stick on an episode of Next Gen. And I love Patrick Stewart, and he has a great voice.
Yeah, man.
Absolutely. And I love the way he says "number one." you have the bridge number one. But I know that I don't sound like Patrick Stewart, but I at least try. I'm not the best at impressions. I've got to be honest.
Okay. So I mean, on that note, though, like, I can give some advice to that level, Rob. If you're you're not like that into the impressions level,
it's not that I'm not into them. It's just that the only thing I can recommend is just watching them over and over and over because their voices are so iconic. You know,
that is exactly it, though.
Yeah.
I can remember when I was a kid, right? Like this is how people like I get people questioning me all the time after games and stuff like, oh man, like how did you come up with that voice or what did you do? And I'm like, I don't know how to explain it to them because most of the voices that I do for games, I have heard from other places and I am like a chameleon when it comes to sucking up voices and languages. And I'll eventually, if I don't know it now, I will eventually learn it. So, Harry, as far as Christopher Lee goes, I know how to do Christopher Lee, and I know how to do Patrick Stewart. I obviously could do them here, but I feel like if I fail at them, I'm gonna just wreck myself. But with Christopher Lee, I think you want to start by watching Lord of the Rings, right? Like watch Sauron, because that right there, or Count Dooku. Watch him as Count Dooku or Sauron.
Saruman, man, not Sauron.
No, sorry, yeah, right. Saruman. Right, I'm getting it wrong already. I'm killing Christopher Lee on the inside. I'm sorry. But yeah, from Saruman in Lord of the Rings or Count Dooku, watch those two characters and just what I do is I put the image on and I watch it and then I go to YouTube and I watch it again on a YouTube channel, maybe like a clip or something, and I don't watch it, I just listen, because what's going to happen is your brain is going to start picking up on those vocal inflections, the things that maybe when you're watching visually you wouldn't always pick up on. Those are the things that like I do to get myself. So for when I did Severus Snape, right, when I do my Alan Rickman impression, Alan Rickman is big for me, but I always go to Snape as the first category when I go watch something, because it's always in the back, you know, like his long and hardened voices are always sort of nasally in nature, and they have this sort of accent which only lends itself to slow and methodical voices. So
that was really cool, man. That was pretty good.
That's basically what you have to do. Now I've done it like sometimes I'll do an accent that's or an impression that is better, and sometimes I'll do an impression that is worse. It just depends on the given day. But the one thing that I'll say, Harry, is like, don't let yourself be like crestfallen if the first time you try this, you know, the first time you try an impression, the first time you try an accent, like it fails, right? Like you're sitting in front of the mirror, you're trying it out, and it sounds like it's bombing. Okay, cool.
There's something else that I would suggest as well. If you want to, it's hard to describe. If you just want to get the if you don't think you're going to be able to pull off like Saruman or Gandalf, like just take a sound. There's a moment in the first Lord of the Rings, the Fellowship of the Ring. Gandalf discovers Saruman is in fact in league with Sauron, and they have a wizard's duel, and it's an excellent scene. And the one bit of Gandalf I can do is when he attacks with his, and this is Gandalf, not Saruman, but when he attacks with his staff, he goes, "Ah!" And that is the wizard duel noise. "Ah!" And from there, like, you can get away with anything because you could just do that one thing. So
focus
on one element.
Ian McKellen.
Ian McKellen, man, being smacked around by Christopher Lee, man, it's great.
Well,
So focus on one element, and then it's fine.
I feel like a lot of those old, especially like the older actor generation, right? We talk about like the older actors like Christopher Lee and Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen. Whether you like to know it or not, I have learned something. Almost every one of those older generation British actors have a chunk in their vocal patterns that if you can find it, almost all of them become super simple for you after you find that one phrase or that one little note. You can kind of fluctuate between like depth at that point, because obviously Christopher Lee is very dark and deep down here in the throat. You know, I can't obviously do it right now because I've been up since 5 a.m. But it's like way down deep in the throat to get to that very powerful voice range which you want to have as Christopher Lee. So obviously, if you can't do a perfect voice, don't worry about it. Get as close as you can, and then people will recognize that as being that. I did, I think, Rob, I did earlier today. We talked about German accents earlier today.
Yeah.
And I did a Christoph Waltz impression, which was pretty dope.
The thing is, though, I don't think it. At the end of the day, once again, if you aren't playing Adventures in Middle Earth and you don't actually have a Christopher Lee character that you're presenting to your players, you don't need to worry about it. You just need to get, like you say, as long as you're close, and then they kind of get the idea of what you're trying to do, but you're not Christopher Lee in the game, unless you are saying, right, I'm playing Saruman in this Lord of the Rings game. Don't worry about it. Just get influences from them is what I would say. So yeah. But yeah, German as well. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. No, we had fun this morning doing that because somebody asked how we would do German accents. So,
do you know the interesting thing about and I really had meant to mention this to Mike. I'm guessing he'll watch this, or maybe he'll watch this later. Otherwise, I'll just tell him. I'll hunt him down. But Edric, who is his character in the New Provokers campaign, I have a really special place for him in my heart, because Edric has it's very much a Gloucestershire accent, specifically Gloucester, which is 5-10 minutes from where I grew up. I grew up in a place called Cheltenham, which is, next door to it. And it's really weird. If you're from Cheltenham, you speak like me. But if you're from Gloucester, you go, hello there, you're right there, my lover. Like you get that. And I wanted to speak to you about that, actually, because it's very close to my heart, because I live 5 or 10 minutes away from people that speak like Edric. So but sorry, man, I interrupted you.
No, it's fine, because I always give him crap about the fact that when he does the Edric voice, it sounds like every single Fable NPC that's ever been done.
It is a lot like
you're right
there.
hello there, you're wonderful. But no, like I flippin' love when you guys do, like, the thing that I love about you, Rob, is that it might not be an accent, but the way you describe and express a character, like every single one of your NPCs so far, going through the Lore Keepers game, and even in the games that I'm not even present for, the ones that I'm just watching, they're so good, man. You've got such good depth of understanding how to present an NPC. So I guess my next step would be then, Lionel asked he says he struggles with consistency of tone and pitch throughout a session.
Right.
How would you handle that?
Tone and pitch. Okay. I hate to sound like a broken record, but I mean, as long as you have like a base to like start from, like a trigger word. I mean, it works for accents, but it works for tone and pitch as well. I mean, if you remember a specific area of your throat or your mouth where the voice is made, so if you really think about it, I'm just trying to think of like an old man voice. Okay, so that I did earlier. So at the back of the throat, like this, like I can tell it's here. That's where it comes from. So you just concentrate on that area of your throat whilst you're speaking, and you're making sure that you're using everything around here. And I'm an old man. You know, if you have "I'm an old man" as your starting point, like just keep going back to that is what I would say. I mean, it's trickier with tone because it isn't you using a particular word to trigger yourself. It's a sound. A sort of not a sound, like well, there's no other word for it.
My name's Barnabas.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah, like, and it's yeah. I mean, just give yourself a base to work from is what I would say. I mean, and if you find that you're dropping it out of it, don't worry. Like, the main point of the idea is that you're conveying information to your players. If they understand who that character is, then that's absolutely fine. And you can cheat as well. It doesn't have to be in your portrayal. It can be in your description. I mean, you're saying how I run games, Chad. Well, I always try and make sure, whether it's in combat, whether it's in a social situation, I'm always talking about how they are as a human being or as a sentient character. Obviously, with D&D, there's more than just humans. Like what their eyes are doing. Do they seem confident? Even in fights, like I say what people's eyes are doing. I say, Taxes just collides into this warrior, and the warrior stumbles back, fear and doubt now present in his eyes. Like, that's all you need, like to give a mood. Like, and it's telling you something about that character and that mood without you even having to do a voice. So if you are struggling with that, go the other way. Tell them what they're hearing rather than actually saying what they're hearing, if you know what I mean, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's awesome, man. So I guess since I've kind of gone through the questions and they've already heard me ramble on about the questions earlier today, so I don't want to repeat my answers for those.
Well, we got the chat. Let's see if anyone else wants to.
That's what I'm looking for right now.
That's cool, man. Who we got here? We've got
Harry and Lionel are pretty much in here. I saw Mike. I saw Mike earlier, and yeah. I don't know.
Okay.
So right now, here's what we'll do, Daddy. Let's go and do the scenario thing that I set up with.
Oh yeah, I do not know what this is.
Okay, so the scenario thing that I set up earlier was I had you guys roll some dice last night, and you rolled a 12, and he rolled an 8. So what I did is I went and I grabbed my book that I got all these out of, and it's called the Writer's Idea Thesaurus, dude. This is the coolest resource that I can possibly suggest for anybody. The Writer's Idea Thesaurus. Inside it, there are about 20 chapters. I'm flubbed up and thought there were only 12. There are 20.
Dude, I've got a D20. I've got a D20 right here.
Sure. Do you want to? If you want to on the spot, let's re-roll so we can have something completely different from what Mike did. We can do that right now. I will gladly do that right this minute.
If you want me to roll a D20, man, I've got it right here. All I need to do is drop it.
Do it, and we'll figure this out.
18.
18. Okay, so I'm going to go to chapter 18.
I need to save my good rolls for tonight, though.
No, that's fine. I'm gonna go to chapter 18 then, and it says the secret. Okay, so this one is the secret of X, right? So, and then do me a favor and then roll a D10.
Oh, jeez. Okay. All right. 10.
10. Okay. The secret of youth or old age. Okay. So. All right. So that's going to be the first one. And then roll another d20 and another d10.
Okay.
The reason I ask is because I had 2 scenarios and I put them both together for the first one.
Sure.
So-
Okay. So the D20 I've rolled a 2, and the D10 I've rolled a 4.
Okay. 2 and 4. Okay, what is this? If these don't make sense to each other,
Yeah. If it doesn't make sense, just give me another one. Like just
okay.
say like I don't mind.
If it doesn't make sense, I'll go with the one we had earlier today because the one we created earlier today was crazy cool.
Oh, okay. Wow, that's no pressure at all.
I think you might really like that one though. Okay, so what it ended up being was chapter 2 is the clash or competition between X and Y, and it's like a democracy versus dictatorship or monarchy versus theocracy, right? So some sort of democracy versus hierarchy. And I like that too. So let me go through. So what we're doing, just so you know, is we are creating a faction and then like NPCs that would live or breathe inside that faction. Okay? That's essentially what we're going to do using these as templates. So I'm going to go to the Secrets of Old Age section.
I'm getting my pen and paper, man.
Yeah, dude. Okay.
Okay.
So we're going to create some NPCs real quick out of this.
Sure. I've already got one for the dictatorship.
The dictatorship? Okay, cool. You got one for that? Okay, awesome. So here we go with search for where is it? I did search for these.
There you go. I'm quite happy with that. It's like a timed challenge.
Yeah, dude, this is cool. Okay, here we go.
Cool,
so
man.
Secrets of Old Age would be this one back here. All right, so I'm just going to look through the 10 examples they've got, and I'm just going to read off one of them. Okay. Okay. Diagnosed with a terminal illness, an old man tells his brother that he has cheated him out of thousands of dollars in a fraudulent business transaction, and will give him that sum in his will. Alas, the terminal diagnosis proves false, and now the brother demands the money up front. So that is the Secrets of Old Age section, right?
Right.
So we have a character who has basically robbed his brother of the opportunity to take that money from his will. And then the democracy versus dictatorship is here somewhere. Where are you? Chapter 2. Democracy versus dictatorship. It's here somewhere. What chapter is this? Okay, here we go. Chapter 2. Democracy versus dictatorship. Okay. In an imaginary country, a civil war is about to break out between those who insist on government by the people at its best hope for social harmony, and those who insist on a government by a philosopher king who offers that insist a government by a philosopher king offers the best hope. The protagonist rallies for the former, while the former friend rallies support for the latter. So I kind of like this one, but I kind of want to relate it to what we did earlier. Okay, so obviously we have this noble, right, who is dying, who is going to bequeath his riches to his brother.
Right.
But I like the idea in the dictatorship, like the democracy versus dictatorship, that this noble was like the king.
Yeah.
And his brother was this latter person who wants to either take the who wants to take the kingdom from him, but
And
he's
make
like,
it a
no,
democracy.
no, a democracy, right? He
Yeah,
wants
so
to take
is
the kingdom.
the other guy trying to make a democracy from the king?
Yeah, like that's what I'm picturing. That's what I'm picturing. Is like one of the brothers is like, look, you've been a dictator for far too long. You've been killing people off, blah blah blah, and
now you're dying. I'm gonna.
Now you're dying. I'm gonna take your money, but I'm gonna use it for good. I'm gonna use it for good benefit. But once the brother decides,
it would be like money and power. Like
Right.
it would be the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So
Sure.
I'm gonna give you. Okay. So go ahead. You can go ahead and say what you want.
I was just going to say, I came up with the king character. I've called him King Overseer Valen.
King Overseer Valen. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, cool, man. And so I think that I'll give you what Mike and I did because I love the world concept that we ended up coming up with. And we can probably put this into that world concept, okay?
Sure. Okay.
Hear me out. So in this scenario, this morning scenario, people in a specific city are transformed by rain. The personalities, thoughts, and even appearances change. There are different factions devoted to rain all over the city, but then something happens. The city experiences a vast monsoon. The rain has gone from being transformative and inspirational to torrential and dangerous. And the secondary thing to that was bards in a dystopian world are outcasted and considered insane by most. They invade the city that outcasted them and stage a mock trial for the officials that saw them exiled. Alas, they acquire the same sort of attitudes that they once accused their captors of harboring.
Yeah, okay, and I suppose that buys into the whole dystopian dictatorship that we were just talking about.
Exactly. So I figure now we can stack this idea on top of that idea.
Oh, right? Okay. It's a lot of information.
No, it's okay. It's okay. We'll work it through. Essentially,
all right.
Here's what we came up with from the earlier session.
Okay.
That there were two sectors of this city, right? There is the dry ones, these people that like the arid ones who do not like the rain, who stay indoors, who are very like agoraphobic, and they're like more of the higher nobility because they do not want to get wet and have this drenching, overwhelming, though they don't want the water to touch them at all.
Water is weakness.
Water is weakness. No, but and then the bards, Mike came up with this really cool thing that like the rain in and of itself, the rain of this particular city is causing the bards to have like this creative euphoria, right? Where it just explodes their creativity. And over time, it is genuinely like melting them. It is
wow.
Contorting them. The way that we kind of expressed it was I immediately saw like the Dishonored, like the Weepers. I immediately saw like that kind of plague-based rain kind of thing. And
that's cool.
He called them rainwalkers, right? So these rainwalker bards are kind of quarantined and exiled. And they want their freedom. They want the freedom to be able to express themselves, but they can't have that right now because some sort of a dictatorship is saying, you guys are quarantined and you're off on this end, and we can't have that. That's a no-no. We made some really cool stuff. So I just want to get your feedback on how you would go forward with this. With all this information, where would you go from here?
As in terms of doing voices and characters, or
so what we're gonna do is we're basically gonna be doing world building and character voicing, right?
Okay.
So one of the things that we talked about with the rainwalkers is that because their faces are kind of melting slowly but surely, like their faces and their bodies are sort of melting because of the rain. that undue exposure would sort of droop your face and your body, and you would start to lose the ability to form normal sort of sentences. So everything starts to droop and be saggy, and even most of your vocals end up somewhere here. Right?
Okay.
Like something like that. And then like like any of the arid, like, or dry landscape people would be very whispery almost, like, I don't want anything, or very haunty, and they're like, I don't want anything to do with you. Disgusting.
Yeah. Well, you can imagine they've just got really dry mouths because they don't want to have as little close to interaction with moisture as possible, I suppose. So yeah, that makes absolute sense. Yeah, I mean, it's difficult. I mean, going back to the king overseer and the brother that was like, is the brother looking out for the best interests of this the rainwalkers, or is he I mean, what?
You know what I mean?
And also to what end? Because like, are the rainwalkers gonna die eventually if they keep getting exposed to this?
Exactly. What if okay, so I have an idea. What if this king, right? This overseer, what if he was originally one of the dry folk? He lived in the dry zone, but he got infected by the rain, right?
Mm-hmm.
Somehow he gets infected by the rain. So it becomes almost this terminal illness, right? It becomes that terminal illness that we talked about. And now his brother is just waiting for that madness to overtake him so that he can take that and then re-establish the boundaries, saying like, look, you're going insane, you're going mad, you're becoming one of them. Like, what if you become a full-on rainwalker? And
what if the brother is a rainwalker and wants that to happen?
Ooh. That is also a very good thing. I like that idea. There you go. What if he's secretly like an underground rainwalker, and then like?
Well, yeah, and that's why he wants to change the way the king has been ruling things, because he wants to see the people that he's becoming like treated with more respect, because he has a limited time.
Yeah, he has a limited time of doing things. That's awesome, man. I love that.
There you go.
But I think what it basically comes down to is learning the environment. So, this is literally just world building in and of itself.
Yeah.
When you start talking, it's amazing how much voices can kind of structure a way of an environment is created. But
yeah, sure.
I imagine, like, we talked about it earlier, but I imagine like at some point the dry zone of this city, right? The dust district of this city has essentially said, look, quarantine on all, like, no rain. So they carry like a lot of heavy umbrellas. They carry umbrellas when they go out. They have like specific times that they can go about the markets and go about the streets. And then if they do manage to get water on them at all, I imagine that like some people are like these collectors of the rain for the dust district. So there's like this underground sort of drug ring that like, oh, you guys want, and Mike, I think, called it euphoria earlier, where it's like euphorium, and you can take a little dropper of euphorium, which is nothing more than like this like really cool iridescent rainwater, and you would just drop it in any drink and you could mix it up, and then you would get that same like bardic inspiration for a period of time without feeling the overwhelming physical aspects, you know?
Yeah, I like this, and I think the thing that I would do if I had to run this as a game or something, fact of the matter is, water always wins. Water is a powerful, eroding, invincible force, and I would like the idea of there being a tone of inevitability about this. Eventually, everyone is going to become a rainwalker. That's just the fact. Like, unless a cure is found, there is nothing that's going to stop that. And I like the analogy of erosion of water ebbing away at the arid ones, whatever they're called.
Yeah, dude.
So I would play it with a tone of almost finality, like Dishonored. Like, it's like if Deets keeps going the way it is, then the world is going to end, and the city is just going to be in chaos. And
yeah,
man.
I love it because, like, my thought process was something like, you know, especially like with this king, right? He's older and he's got a little bit more gruff to his voice, maybe. Brother, how long have I been without the rain? Do you hear it? Do you hear the sounds of the rain pattering against the windowsills? I've heard it before. I know I could hear it again. Something like that, right? Where you start to really get a sense of he's kind of losing his mind, and eventually, like, his body, like maybe his body starts to droop in while he's in the bed, or maybe somebody's coming and trying to feed him water, you know.
Well, imagine the fact. I mean, as human beings, or like human beings, at least they would have water in them. So imagine if he started crying, and as a tear starts going down his face, it's actually just wiping away that part of his face as he cries.
Oh, that is so cool.
Man.
And
that just shows that it's starting.
Oh, I love
it. The only thing is like I really like the arid voice because it has that sort of dusty, dry kind of thing. But I think with the water, I like the droopy kind of just talking like there's nothing even definitive about what they're saying. Like they're becoming guttural, kind of sagging humanoids that are basically, they have to try harder to say things because
and then Mike even brought up a really good point that I think maybe you'd find really cool about this. So he said at a certain point, right, when all the skin starts to sag off, right, and say these bards have been out in the rain for months on end, right, and so their faces have now pretty much just become like skeletal figures, right? At a certain point, you want to stop that from happening, because if your face falls off, you're dead, right? So I imagine that, like,
Chad 2016, if your face falls off, you're dead.
If your face falls off, you're
I'm
dead.
going to quote you on that.
No, so I imagine that they've developed these like masks, right? That Mike mentioned they've developed these masks that they would wear, where it becomes to a point where I can't speak for myself anymore because my body and my face is drooped down so low. And so now they wear these like solid steel masks, and they have like writers who write for, like, who will speak for them.
Yeah.
So they'll write down a sentence, and then they'll give it to like a translator, and the translator will be like, he needs you to do this for him. You know, something along those lines.
Excellent. I really like that. Well done. Spot on. That's cool.
What would you suggest? I mean, going forward, as we're building these sort of characters, I mean, obviously I love what we're doing right now with developing these, but like, okay, one of the things that I know we mentioned in the other one, and maybe you can kind of expand on this. We were talking about a group called the Drainers, right? Being another faction in this world. And the Drainers were these kinds of arid, like dust district people who wanted to stop the rain clouds so that they could just exist and be normal in this city. So they're trying to stop the rain. They're trying to change the weather patterns. So somehow, some way, they're either through the killing off of rainwalkers or through the actual attacking the clouds themselves, trying to eradicate the plague that is currently going on. What would you say to that in terms of building an NPC there?
Well, the first thing that I thought about the Drainers, wouldn't it be cool, like like you just said, if your face falls off, then you're dead. I like the idea of perhaps the Drainers are people that are trying to retain moisture in their body, maybe, and they drain it from other people, so they then in turn don't die. They're basically like hydro vampires that basically like pull water from other people, so they in turn don't die.
Oh my god, dude,
then,
that is cool.
So then
Awesome.
you're then dealing with a vampire character, which I quite like, but a different kind of vampire, a hydro vampire or whatever. And you can have fun with vampires. I mean, they can be charismatic, dude. or they can be like 40 days a night or whatever it is. Where
that
they're
is
just monsters.
That is so cool. Yeah. There we go. I'm gonna coin that right now, ladies and gentlemen. Hydro vampire. Like that's man. Gonna. Oh my god, I gotta do that now.
Cool.
If this goes like Marquise and I were already talking about it. Like if this world expands and I actually decide to run something in this, like hydro vampires are gonna be in it. You're welcome.
Wicked, man.
Like, that's gonna be great.
Awesome.
But I think we'll try to get back to like the voice stuff for just a little bit longer. I think we'll try to go for a little longer. Is there anything that you would recommend? Because in terms of, I don't really have many more questions to ask you, but is there anything that you would recommend that you think helps you in especially like a tabletop D&D setting? When you have a very constricted format, how do you structure it to be like, I'm going to do this voice and I'm going to, like sit down and then get ready for that? Like, what is your process? Because obviously everybody has a process, and I kind of want to know your process into how you get into character and what you do.
Well, short of the things that I've mentioned before, like making sure that if you want a particular voice, then you have your triggers. In doing so, you can also, show the character's intent and emotions and feelings through their body language. I just like to make sure that I have a really clear, like one thing that I really like doing on occasion is having a really, really clear thing in my mind as to what they're going to say. I'll have a moment in each game where I'll know roughly what I want to be said at a certain point in time by an NPC, if you run into them. Like, I don't like hand-holding, but if, fortune takes you in that direction, then I like to plan what sort of things they're going to say and how they say it, because if you take apart, I was nearly about to spoil something, the lore keepers then, and I don't want to do that. So it's
oh no!
No, I'm not going to.
I almost got meta information that like I probably shouldn't have had.
No, I'm not. I've not told anyone, and I'm not going to. But there are basically like putting your motivations out there. That's what I would say. If you want real characters, if you want real sort of believable characters, I would think about their motivations, and I would then think about how you can portray that without actually telling people their motivations. Put it that way.
Yeah, I think like Tim does this really, really well. As far as all the people that I've seen, he's so good, and he doesn't have to do a voice. He's so good about like giving defined direction of and motivation just through his character portrayals. With Raylan and with Kristoff and everything that he's been doing recently, it's like that's just his normal voice, right? Like both of those characters are pretty much his normal voice, but the way he portrays each one, I can visibly see the difference between Raylan and Kristoff. There's a
absolutely
visible difference.
And I've said this to Tim actually, and I'll say it again. I'll say it until the day I die. One of Tim's strengths is not his greatest strength when it comes to role playing, is his ability to relax. I know this is something I've spoken about before, but I think that is, and I probably should have mentioned this earlier, but it is probably one of the key factors in voices and portraying character, is to relax. It is advice from Anthony Hopkins and people like that. It is, you are never going to be as involved or as believable as a character if you're not able to just relax into it. You're not trying too hard. If you're really struggling and really trying to nail a voice, I'm afraid it'll be obvious. You just need to just relax into the role and not worry. If you don't worry, then instantly it becomes 10 times easier. And I think Tim, like you say, has a great way of portraying his motivations without spelling it out. He's able to sort of, you are able to differentiate his different characters with any slight changes to his voice, I'd say. I mean, Raylan has kind of a gunslinger kind of voice to my mind, whereas Kristoff is a bit more, I can't even think of the right word. Snappy is the only thing I could think of. A bit sarcastic. There we go. And that is just a mood. That isn't changing his voice, really. It's just a mood, and it's a mood that he embodies, and because of that, they appear as different people.
Exactly. They're two different people because they portray different things. So, Rob, one of the things that I guess Harry wants us to try to do, since you brought up hydropires, he said that he would like for us to try and portray what we would think that a hydropire would sound like in this world.
Easy.
Okay.
I think that I would do it like this. I would have. Let me think. Give me a sentence to say as a hydropire. I've noticed their name has changed to hydropire now, but that's quite cool.
So, I like the idea that these hydropires, these drainer type creatures,
they would speak, in my opinion, they would speak by drawing in rather than out. So, I will destroy you.
Oh, dude.
There we go.
What? Nope.
That's not easy at all, but you're making the sound as you're drawing in rather than out.
Oh my god.
Yeah, that's what I do.
Death will reap your soul always and forever. Fine. dude, okay, that is
like that.
For those of you who are sitting at home watching us be just complete dorks right now,
this is the end. Let's stop.
it is excessively hard to do that drawn-in breath thing. I think we were talking earlier about dragons, and about how that sort of like airy breathiness to everything. Good Lord, if I had to portray a hydropire for like an hour and a half session, I'd be like, I need something.
That's the thing. I mean, you got to make sure that your voice is practical as well. And maybe that isn't practical, but to be honest, if I was gonna have hydropires or whatever, like I would ensure that when they do speak, it would be at dramatic moments, because that's quite a powerful way of presenting a voice. So you want to save it. You don't want to saturate the players with that voice.
Yes, exactly.
Very important points.
One of the things that I think that NPCs are very important with, right? NPCs are like your bookends. For me, like NPCs are like your bookends. You have the good NPC that introduces your quest or your task or whatever, and maybe they're not good, but maybe they're just like the middle range, the mysterious stranger that tells you of this tale, and you have to go do this quest. And as soon as you go do this quest, I'll give you 100 gold. You know, all these kinds of things. And then you have the villain, and there's always that like, or the big creature. It's always like Zelda-esque, right? Where, cool, NPC gives you task. You must go to temple to get this thing. And then once you go to the temple, the creature or the band of bandits comes out, and the leader of the bandits gives you this monologue, and then you kill the monologue character because, hey, 007, you know, everything happens for a reason. And I think that is really iconic. You want to save those really juicy voices for really important moments, not only in your campaign, but throughout every session.
Absolutely. Yeah. You it's like the rise and fall. It's like if you're planning how you're going to structure your session, I think that's a very important thing to consider. Your rise and falls, your highest point, your lowest point. Yeah, and definitely showcasing a wicked and interesting voice at a certain integral part of the story is a great way of accenting that sort of thing. So I completely agree.
Yeah, man. But dude, Rob, it has been crazy awesome to kind of just sit here with you for, I think we've been going for about an hour now.
Yeah, man. I think that's spot on. Yeah, thanks very much for having me.
Hey, man, I love this. Actually, what I would love to do, if you will allow it, is I would love to have you back for another session of this down the road at some point. I'm kind of gonna try. I really think this is a cool way to get people to talk about NPCs, to talk about character development and world building together. So I think what would be a really cool thing is if we start doing these. Like, I kind of want to try to do one at least once a month, you know?
Sure.
So there will be more of these, guys. There will be more of these wonderful things. Rob, if you want to, one of the things that I want to make vitally clear before we close out, it is Brigade Con. This is the reason why we are here. I made some postages and links below. You can go to Brigade Con. Please donate to that wonderful, wonderful charity. It is by far my favorite thing in the world. It's why I do this every year now. And I cannot thank you enough for being here. I cannot thank Mike enough for coming in and doing what he did this morning. You guys are just crazy cool. I would love to have a panel where both of you sit in, and maybe we even have another third, you know. Maybe we'll have a third, and maybe we'll just have like a whole group of wonderfully creative voice peoples to kind of sit down and just actually, that'd be a cool idea. What do you think about this? What if we get you, Mike, and maybe one other person to sit down with me, and
sure.
And what we'll do is we'll, from scratch at the very beginning of the session, we will create a faction, maybe using, I don't know, Be a Better Faction Master. Right? We'll use Be a Better Faction Master. We'll create a faction, and then from there, each one of us will get one character that we get to turn into an NPC for that faction.
Absolutely, it sounds pretty cool, man.
That's awesome, man. Thank you again so much. If you want to do your outro and plug yourself,
thank you very much. Yeah, once again, thanks for having me, man. It's been a real pleasure, and once again, apologies for this separate chat, but I hopefully made up for it in some way. I would love to have a chat with. I was really looking forward to talking with Mike about this because Mike is incredibly skilled, and despite what I said earlier, I love him. He's great. No,
he's a great person.
He's great. He's great. If you can stand him. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. So my name is Rob. You can find me on my channel Performance Check. Last night I ran a wicked one shot based in my get in the world that is featured in the Lore Keepers, which is what we spoke about briefly tonight. Go check that out. Some great players in it. Just come and see my stuff. There's more. If you like how I talk about making characters and voices, then no doubt you'll find more of that kind of content on my channel, Performance Check. And once again, thank you, Shan, and do not forget, everyone watching, to pledge your support to Brigade Con.
Thank you very much, man. This is, dude, first of all, I can't say enough about Lore Keepers. I tell everyone, like, you gotta know this, man. I tell everybody at work. I tell my best friends. I'm just like, Lore Keepers all day long. You got to go check out Rob. He, for one thing, is you are dynamite when it comes to just building lore for a world and making that world feel cohesive and beautiful. And every NPC you've delivered so far, I can visually see it. Like at the end of every session, I visually see every NPC you've dropped. And so that's why I wanted you here, because if there's a king of creating NPCs right now, that would be you in my eyes.
Oh, it's
like because you're really, really good at very, very minuscule. Like I only need to say a few sentences to really get my point across as to visually what this NPC represents.
Well, I don't want to get back into another conversation.
No, that's fine.
Again.
I know we're closing, but
yeah. I think as a final closing point of advice, and I would say that, yeah, absolutely, you do not need a paragraph to make an NPC memorable. You just need to present them in a way that is memorable. That's all I've got to say on that.
Yeah, man, absolutely.
Chad, thank you ever so much for saying that, promoting the Lore Keepers and stuff. It wouldn't be half as good a game if there wasn't my favorite Dragonborn in there, man. So
thanks, man. All right, so like I said, I'm gonna try to have more of these up later. Definitely not today. I'm done for the day on trying to sneak in more people to do this. But hopefully we'll get other people on here. We'll get talking about characters, developing more lore. But if you guys liked collective performance today, there will be more. My name is Chad, DM Gastro Gamer. You can find me at Chad Nick here. Please subscribe. Do what you got to do. Enjoy Brigade Con. I've got to go because I got like a game in another 15 minutes with my buddy Jake. We're going to be playing dragons, like full-on dragons in about 15 minutes, and I cannot wait for that madness to occur. Thanks, guys. Have a good night.